Hi, my name is Reed Silverne. The name of this show is Fed Pride. Reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker, retired, and proud of it. Today for me, it's April 12th, 2013. For you, it's probably the following Wednesday, or the week after, or the week after, or the week after. One of the problems that we have is that I actually tape a show only once a month. And then if you happen to turn it on and see it, it could be 5 days old, could be a week old, 2 weeks old, and up to a month old. So the result is that pretty much anything I talk about is going to be obsolete. Usually I do talk about what is topical anyway. However, there's two big stories that are topical, both of which are incomplete at this particular point. The first is, at least on my date, April 12th, the filibuster for the gun control in the Senate was broken. Actually got 68 to whatever it is, 31. And the Republicans had threatened to filibuster it. In fact, they did filibuster it, which meant that to break the filibuster, they needed more than 60 votes, and they got it. So, and this was partially because Newtown survivors of other gun deaths, unnecessary gun deaths, have been going up and down the halls of Congress and probably will continue to, in order to at least, if nothing else, get an up or down vote. The main issue there, because it looks like banning assault weapons is not going to happen, and even getting rid of really high-capacity magazines is probably not going to happen. So it looks like the main problem that we're having is, or the main solution that may or may not be passed, is going to be background checks. So something like in one poll, 92% of the people wanted 100% background checks. In another poll, 88%. A more recent poll of the American people wanted expanded background checks. What are background checks? Basically, the government has a data file that has all of the felons, the people who have restraining orders against them, domestic violence perpetrators, and all these other things, mostly felons, who are not allowed to buy guns, basically. So the Second Amendment as a right to buy guns, since felons are citizens, and so are criminals, at least American criminals, is not absolute. And just about everybody believes that criminals and felons and mental patients and people who are unstable and likely to murder scores of people, like the Aurora, Colorado Joker murderer, mass killers, are probably, it's a good idea for them not to get guns. So everybody who buys from a federally licensed gun dealer has to do a background check. However, if a criminal wants a gun and wants to divert a gun, or if a person wants to divert guns into the illegal market, there's three ways to do it. One is to, or four ways to do it. One is gun shows. Gun shows, basically private dealers and gun shows can sell a gun to just some guy in front of them without going through any background check whatsoever. And actually, Timothy McVeigh, the guy who blew up the Oklahoma City bomber, was one of the guys who did sell guns at gun shows, and that's how he made his living. So it is possible to divert guns to the illegal market that way. A more easy way, in fact, there was a case in Orange County. I'm going to move to California, right across the beautiful Pacific Ocean, and up a little. There's Lake Forest, California. And there was the son of a very prominent pastor in Lake Forest, California, committed suicide, and he bought a gun on the internet. So internet gun sales don't require background checks, and probably it might be a little tough for them to do it, although maybe they could just do it online, at least check out the person who claims to be the person, or the person who comes up with the debit card or credit card online. So that's another way to divert weapons. He ended up, when the police came, he had a weapon that actually had no serial number. So serial number was sawed off. So whoever was selling these guns on the internet knew that they were going to be diverted, and actually took effort. It took an effort to cover up where that gun was coming from. However, they probably will get that guy because it's such a high-profile case, and B, the government is going through the internet and all of law enforcement's possibilities and powers in order to find out who sold the gun, because a very, very prominent person, at least the son of a prominent person, and this guy was a worldwide recognized author, best-selling author, as well as a local pastor, an important person in his community, at least the father. So he's concerned about where did the son get the gun, and the police are going to follow up on that. Where they probably won't follow up if it's a typical gang killing in South Central LA or something like that. So there is diversion, and that will take care of two of them. Now, there was like a gang of, I forgot the number, gang of 8 or gang of 2 or gang of 3, who were getting together to try to draft a bill. And one of them was Lindsey Graham on the Republican side, and Manchin, who's a Democratic senator from a very conservative state, that is West Virginia, getting together to not require, to make sure the law does not require background checks on private transfers. So if you buy a gun from, a stranger on the street, or you buy a gun from your relative who just happens to have gotten out of jail last year, that will still not require a background check. And you could sell your felon brother a gun, or you could buy a gun if you're a felon from your brother who may have a legal right to get a gun. So it will make some diversions a little tougher. It won't take care of the issue of diversion, but it definitely is a feel-good measure, and I feel better if they do pass it, and I hope they do. I would feel better if everybody had to get a background check, and if you wanted to give your son a gun, there's no reason why you can't go down to the nearest federally licensed dealer and background check it, even though your son doesn't have a problem. Of course, you may find out that your son has a restraining order against him from his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend or something. But that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to make sure that private gun sales are perfectly legal. When I first came to Arizona, I think I've told this story on my show before. Police knocked on our door and said, talked to my wife, and said, did you see any suspicious activity across the street? My wife said, no, I haven't seen anything. My across the street neighbor is a policeman. So she saw him a couple days later puttering outside. And she went up to him and said, the police were asking about you and your place. And he said, oh, yeah, I had a break-in. I said, well, what happened? He said, they stole a gun and they shot somebody with my gun. And she said, oh, my God, what's the details on that? And the policeman told her, this is 1994, that he had put an ad in the paper to sell his gun, the classified section, and somebody called up and said, I'd like to come around 2 o'clock and take a look at your gun. Maybe I might want to buy it. So the policeman said to the man on the phone, I'm going to be at work at 2 o'clock. And the guy said, it would be most convenient for me to come at 2 o'clock. How about your wife? And he said, well, my wife is working too, so 2 o'clock's not good. Why don't you come by at 5? The guy said, sure. And at 2 o'clock, his house was broken into. The guy stole a gun and used it in a crime, actually a murder. So that is the main, or one of the really big diversions, which is theft. So if people would actually lock up their guns and use gun locks and so on and so forth, it would be much, much harder to steal their guns. So that is another diversion. And also there's another case where a 4-year-old killed a 6-year-old with a gun that they were playing with because they're master of the house left his gun out for anybody to see and for kids to play with. So the question is, you could control a lot of situations by locking up your guns. The NRA won't be happy with that because that kind of undermines I need my gun under my pillow at every minute in case somebody breaks in and tries to rape somebody or kill somebody. And then I have to have my loaded gun on me at every second and every minute. So, however, the fact of the matter is most people don't use guns for that purpose. Most people use guns for target practice or for hunting, and they really only need to take it out of the gun lock when they need to take it out of the gun lock. So unless they have, one of those fancy triggers that checks your fingerprints or something like that, and doesn't let outsiders or people who aren't you to take or abuse your gun. So it all depends. There is a real question about gun safety versus universal acceptance of guns. So that's going on right now, but I can't make a thing about it because for all I know, tomorrow they're going to actually debate the bill, and then the bill will be defeated in the Senate. Or a week from now, it'll pass in the Senate, and barely pass, because there's apparently 5 conservative Democrats who may vote against it, no matter what it is. And then it'll get buried in the House. So it's hard to say whether this is an issue that you're going to be listening to in a week, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, whether it's going to be a live issue. The other live issue that's going on right now, this minute, and endangering the world, maybe, is North Korea. And I have my little cursor on North Korea over here. North Korea has a new leader. He's only been in charge for a year. April 15th, which is 3 days from now for me, and probably already passed for you, is I believe, the birthday of the founder of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, the Day of the Sun or whatever it is, a big holiday there. And he has been bringing out missile launchers and threatening to launch missiles and test nuclear missiles. So is Kim Jong-un, the new leader, going to do this? I don't know. Again, that's a situation where this little bubble of time right here on April 12th presents an incomplete story. If I say that the world is in danger and that we're on the edge and the precipice, and then tomorrow they back down and nothing happens, then you're watching a show about nothing. Or you're watching a show that you may be alarmed about, unless you've been watching the news and found out that it was about nothing. So on the other hand, in 3 days, they could launch a salvo of nuclear missiles across Japan, and either there's a world crisis or nobody's done anything about it or what. And that's why the new 4-year quadrennial review that establishes the Pentagon's and the Defense Department's plan for protecting this country wants to concentrate on East Asia, because here is the largest and most highly technological potential adversary. China is already taking over or claiming islands that are claimed by Japan and Korea, Vietnam, even down here in the South China Sea, and the Spratlys, I believe they're called, and I forgot, each country has a different name for it, a different set of names. One's Japanese and one's Chinese and so on and so forth, where there's supposed to be oil and gas reserves right around here, north of Taiwan and south of Okinawa. So there's tension. There's tension in that part of the world. The Chinese are building a big blue water navy. Our military needs to be prepared for it, and they basically want to not get out of the Middle East, but downgrade the presence in the Middle East and move more assets over to the Pacific, which was, one of the two really, really big tension areas or areas of American power during the Cold War, the Vietnam War, and so on and so forth. A lot of the Southeast Asian nations are actually welcoming America back, allowing port visits of our naval ships and so on and so forth, just to signal the Chinese that there's a great power out there. There's somebody that can offset your superpower. And the Japanese, who were planning to throw us off of Okinawa and get rid of the American bases there, they pretty much changed their mind. Even though the Philippines has already, we pretty much left the Philippines about a decade ago. And I know many, many people. Many of my friends at work who did tour after tour in the Philippines and liked it. Same thing with tours in Thailand and other places in Southeast Asia. So it looks like, that's the plan to be the next big center of American power. We'll see. Meanwhile, there's a story today, which is kind of buried in the second section or in the first section of the finance news. And I think it's a story that is going to be of tremendous importance in the near future. And, of course, you can find those economic type stories first over here, even if you don't care about it. And basically, China, the second after America, the second great economic power, soon to be one of the great military powers as well, has had its sovereign debt downgraded by one of the big three rating agencies. Big three rating agencies are S&P, Fitch, and the other one, I've lost just the second. It'll come back to me, I'm sure, after the show is over. However, Fitch, which is the largest rating agency of bonds and everything else in the UK, basically all of Europe, has just downgraded Chinese debt. And the reason they downgraded it is really bizarre and strange, at least it is to me. Basically, they feel that China has too much foreign currency reserves. Too much. How is that possible? We have negative reserves, And China has $3.4 trillion of foreign money. And a lot of that is not just the United States. They probably have about $1 trillion. So they don't really control our bond market to where they can crash our bond market and destroy our financial health, even though they've apparently taken a few whacks at us as far as cybersecurity is concerned. However, a lot of that is Japan, which has been printing money like it's going out of style, and their currency's been going down. There's Japan up here. Here's China down here. So what's basically going on? Well, there seems to be China tries to control inflows of money. They have, of course, a trade surplus that's always going on. But they don't want to inflate their currency or to have a bubble. However, outsiders have figured out how to basically flow their money into China through nefarious means. So there's been kind of weird things going on, like in Hong Kong. Exports to Hong Kong went up 93% in 3 months. Well, how's that possible? I know that Hong Kong is also a re-export place to other things, but it doesn't seem right. And it's not right. What's going on is that companies in Hong Kong that are diverting money from the world economy are laundering it into Chinese investments by overcharging and overbilling for goods that they've received in China. So they buy a $100 Chinese cell phone. They'll put it on their books as $1,000 and move $1,000 into a bank account in China under a false name, and then invest that extra $900. So it's kind of a weird form of money laundering. However, it gives these foreigners or these people who are represented by Hong Kong people the ability to invest in China and to drive up housing prices and who knows what else. China has a credit bubble going on of $1 trillion in the last couple of months. That's $1 trillion going into companies, going into stocks, but mostly going into real estate. And that is China's big worry. There's entire cities that have been built there during the last, before the world bubble, that are empty, that are sitting empty. They were just built with just easy credit that the Chinese are trying to clamp down on. So the Chinese are trying to fight the same kind of problem that we had before 2008 of just an unbelievable bubble where nobody can afford to live in anything on the salary that they make. So either they are going to lose their advantage of their low labor rates, which they are already in the process of losing, or they're going to end up with a situation where people can't afford the apartments that are being built for them. And only the rich and speculators, and worst of all, foreign speculators, trying to push their money into China that doesn't want their investment, can create just a bubble that grows and grows and grows. And when it bursts, there could be a new world crisis. So it's hard to say. This is the first time I've seen, at least the first time since 1999, that there's been a downgrading of China's debt by a respected rating company in 14 years. Basically, China's been on top. They have so much money, it's just not funny. They have a surplus with us, with Europe, with Latin America, with Africa, with Russia, with everybody else. An incredible trade surplus, so that money is going in and inflating their currency anyway. The last thing they need is foreigners coming in, buying up their property, and forcing them into a bubble. My name is Reed Silverne. Name of this show is Fed Pride. Reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker, retired, proud of it. And thank you for watching.